Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Whistlethrowers. It's a great way to interact with our show. Our DMs are always open for questions, topic discussions, and more. You will be able to find our new episodes and other announcements there.
What was that last play? Like, that is exactly why he has one ring and why Aaron Rodgers has one ring, too. Alright, and we are back again with another episode of the Whistlethrowers podcast. I'm your host, Jack Mubarak, joined by
Jack Slaymaker,
Nathan Tuczynski.
So we officially finished the divisional round of the playoffs, and the NFC and AFC championship games are set. I'm 4 for 4 on the championship games, so I'm pumped about that.
Yeah, my bracket is absolutely perfect right now.
Yeah, mine would be perfect if I didn't want to piss off Giants fans. I won't take it as perfect.
Yeah.
Aiden?
There was a little bit of a rough game that happened. Might have been a little bit too cocky and too high on the Bills. And they looked real bad on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to pinpoint it on because there was a lot of things that were bad for them. Like everything turned to the worst at the worst time. Their defense could not slow down Cincinnati at all. And it just felt like the Bengals defense controlled the line of scrimmage, and that was sort of the game. And then their secondary was tackling really well, and the Bills were limited on explosive plays, and that's really their bread and butter. And we're learning that your bread and butter can't be explosive plays. Like Josh Allen is a great quarterback. My opinion on him doesn't really lessen because of this game at all. I still think that Allen is one of the best talents in the league. Something needs to change structurally in the offense because you can't just be reliant on 20-plus plays to carry your offense. Like, it can help you in the regular season. You can get high seeds with it, but then you hit a playoff game when the snow's coming down and the opposing defense is really bearing in on you and you can't get those plays. You need something else to turn to. And the Bills just don't have that, and the Bengals do have that. It's sort of weird.
Yeah, and another thing about this game is the Cincinnati Bengals are missing 3 of their starters on the offensive line, and the defensive line for the Bills could not come up with 1 sack in that whole game. That is, if I had to pinpoint one factor of the game that led Cincinnati to beating them at home, it would be that. Because if you can't put pressure on Joe Burrow when he's down 3 of his 5 starters, then how are you going to put any pressure up on him and how are you going to make him throw bad throws and get him off the field?
Yeah, and it's weird how Cincinnati's O-line didn't play well pretty much all season long, and then in their biggest game of the season thus far, 3 of their starters go out and they play their best game of the year probably. Like, that was dominant up front. Like, even the run game too, they were really, really stout, and I was impressed. Frankly, I was impressed.
Yeah, the guy I'm the most impressed with is how well Joe Mixon did. Just because of the conditions, you knew that he'd be getting the football a lot in this game, and even with the 3 backup offensive linemen, he still got over 100 yards rushing with a touchdown. So, I mean, a lot of credit has to go to the offensive line. Clearly, they dominated the entire game. But he was also able to find spaces even with the box loaded and was still able to have a really nice game and was a big factor in just controlling the tempo of Cincinnati to not let Buffalo get the football back and get any momentum in this game.
Yeah, that was really the storyline. Like, Buffalo could not find a way to flip the script at all in the game.
And I do want to clarify, they actually did get 1 sack.
Okay.
But on a team like the Bengals, where last year that cost them a Super Bowl, like, if you can't take advantage of that when other teams have done it so well in the past, 1 sack does not cut it, especially in those conditions in the snow.
Yeah.
Like, you're in Buffalo, you're used to the snow. Like, I don't know how you can't get any offensive movement going in conditions that heavily favor you.
It really goes back to what was their concern going into the year and last year is there wasn't really a consistent solidified run game. Like, we thought that the tides were turning a little bit. Like, Singletary picked it up a decent little bit this year, but it proves in the playoffs that he's pretty much just back to his form. And I mean, it's not only on him either. It doesn't really seem like their O-line gets any push, like they kind of just stunt the D-line once on the line of scrimmage, and then it seems like they don't really block at all after that. Like, I don't know. they're in a tough position right now. Like, it may seem really dire at the moment, but honestly, I wouldn't panic. I think, like, the changes can be made. And I think that, this was the biggest slap in the face. Like, last year you lost to the Chiefs in overtime, like, in a shootout. It didn't really seem like that bad of a loss. And then this year is just, this is a nuclear bomb going off right now, and I think it's a huge wake-up call. I don't think that McDermott will get fired or anything, but I think that changes will be made, like, on the lower levels under McDermott.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the Buffalo rushing, and Josh Allen not only led them in yards, but in carries.
Yeah, it's like that.
Only touchdown.
And listen, we have learned that as Eagles fans, like, you can't just rely on your quarterback to be your run game, both health-wise and, as we see with Buffalo, they can't even produce anything in the rushing attack when your quarterback is your leading carrier and yardage guy.
Yeah, and even then, it's not like Allen had a great game rushing.
Right, yeah.
No.
He only had 26 yards and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, even for his standards.
Yeah, which is not good. Mm-hmm. And he only beat Singletary by 2 yards, too. So you can have a rushing attack with your quarterback at certain points if it's successful.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to get 50 yards with your quarterback rushing, which for certain quarterbacks, that can be expected. Jalen Hurts, you can expect 50 a game out of him.
Yeah.
Mahomes could do it at certain points, too. We've seen it a couple of times in playoffs where he escapes the pockets, gets 10, 15-yard carries.
Right.
Do that a couple of times, you're close to 50 yards.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're rushing 8 times and can't get to 50 as a quarterback, you've got problems.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. I think it's also worth noting we all heard about Stefon Diggs leaving the stadium before even officials and members of the team even got in there. I talked about this with Jack. I think he's going to request out, and he disagreed with me, but I don't know. Like, I think he's really fed up. They've had, like, 2 or 3 bad losses at this point in the same game the last couple of years, and like he obviously wants to win. He stated in the past he wants to win 5 Super Bowl rings, and like I don't know about that at this stage in his career, but I don't even know if this team could like lift themselves like out of the hump, because they were never better than the Chiefs, and the Bengals literally came out of nowhere, and I can say that they are a way better team than them.
Yeah.
And they did everything that Buffalo tried to do but wasn't able to do.
Yeah, agreed.
And I don't know, especially with like the rise of like other teams, I think Jacksonville can have the potential to be like a Bengals in a couple years. And I don't know where their place is within the AFC, and I think I saw this in a comment section below a post explaining like Stefon Diggs rushing out. Like he literally got traded from the NFC Vikings to the AFC Vikings.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just don't see a way for that team to win. And I'm not saying that it's Josh Allen or Stefon Diggs' fault. I do look at the run game for sure, but something's got to give. And I don't think Diggs is going to be patient enough to stay around and like find out.
I do think Diggs is going to stay. I think that a lot of their problems are on the defensive side too. Like they have a lot of stuff to look at, but I don't think that I don't think they're necessarily so far behind Cincinnati and Kansas City that like it's not worth staying if you're Stefon Diggs. Like I think Diggs, this is probably the best situation that he's going to be able to compete in, unless you get traded to literally 3 or 4 teams I can think of. It's like the Chiefs, Bengals, Eagles, Niners would probably be better situations than Buffalo right now. And it's like, you're not getting traded there. They're not trading for you at this point.
No.
Maybe went to the Niners.
Maybe the Chiefs.
I was going to say the other team that could be a possibility that would be the best fit is the Cowboys, except after what just happened, I don't know what they're going to do with their team.
Yeah, why would you want to leave Allen to Prescott?
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. Yeah, the Cowboys don't even have faith in Prescott anymore. At least the fans don't, but Jerry's still... the Cowboys are a very weird situation at this point, which has been what we've said about the Cowboys the last 5 years with that, and it's not getting any better. I don't know if it's going to... I don't know. You've got to wait out the trades. You got to wait out free agency. So if Diggs wants out, he's going to have to wait until the middle of March.
Right.
If not the end of March, when everything's already gone into progress, to then make a decision.
Yeah, agreed. And I'm like just reiterating my point again. Like I just don't see even Dallas really making a trade like that. I think they're looking bigger right now. I think they might be looking for a new quarterback. Like, I've seen Cowboys for Lamar now is getting talked about. And it's like, I said this before, where there's smoke, there's fire. Like, I truly believe that. And like, I think if you start hearing these Cowboys and Lamar rumors more, there's going to be some truth behind it eventually. Not that I see Lamar going there. I'm just saying that it could be a possibility. Like, I don't see Dallas coming back with Dak next year. I don't really think Jerry likes Dak, to be honest with you.
That would be such an interesting situation if Lamar went to a team with Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, and like, here's the other thing that I want to say that like furthers that is, I feel like the NFL trend is shifting a little bit for these like big name guys. I'm not saying it's going to become the NBA, but I think it's becoming a little bit more looser like the NBA, where it's easier now for a quarterback to want a trade and get that, Even like Carr signed his extension with Vegas, and like now they're both moving on from that, or at least going to try to. And like, I feel like a lot of teams want to get rid of their quarterback, and they would welcome Dak in. Like, I could see Vegas welcoming Dak in, and I could vice versa. I could see Dallas welcoming Derek Carr in. It's like, it might not be an upgrade, but it's a fresh new thing that like they're willing to try. I feel like.
I think Dak would actually do very well in a team like the Las Vegas Raiders, because I don't know, I just feel like there's an immense pressure to just be the Dallas Cowboys quarterback, and he's obviously not built for it at all. I don't think he's a bad player at all. Like, we even saw like last week. I mean, I didn't think he was going to replicate it this week, and he surely didn't, but I thought he'd play at least a little bit better than this. Like, this won't win any playoff football game.
Agreed.
Against anyone.
Yeah. And honestly, one of the other big takeaways I had from the game is like, Dallas played that poorly on the offensive side of the ball, and yet they still had an opportunity on their final drive to win the game. Like, it kind of tells me that they're right there, because the 49ers are, they're part of the cream of the crop of the NFC, and like, they were right there, and they played that poorly on offense. Like, I don't necessarily think that they're in that dire of a situation either. Sort of like Buffalo. Like, I think Buffalo is definitely better than Dallas, but you're not that far off if you're Dallas. Like, your defense played well.
Yeah.
Yeah, except for the fact that Tony Pollard might be out for a while.
Yeah, that's going to be a big one. But then again, it's running back, so.
Yes, but did you notice the offense totally died off the moment he got hurt?
Yeah.
In the first half and the second half? The thing is, Pollard's a running back, yes, but the way that he receives out of the backfield, he might be one of the top 5 best receiving running backs in the NFL. And it's not talked about because he's been behind Zeke his entire career. And he finally got more carries this year, more yards. But the way that he just catches the ball, the way that he runs his routes is amazing for a running back. I mean, it's right up there with McCaffrey and some of the other best receiving backs in the league. So not having that for Dak to rely on hurt a lot, and is going to hurt next year if Pollard isn't ready for training camp.
Yeah, I can't name 5 running backs that are more dynamic than Tony.
No.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say he's probably right behind McCaffrey in terms of like durability as a running back.
Wait, durability with CP?
Well, I meant like as in terms of all the things he can do.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of what I meant by that. Not durability was the wrong word, but he can, he does a lot more than just taking a handoff. That's kind of what I meant by that.
Which Zeke, that's all Zeke can do at this point.
Yeah, right.
Ridiculous.
And he doesn't even really look that great when he's doing it.
No, he looked horrible against the Niners.
Yeah.
Compared to what Pollard was doing. I mean, what frustrates me about watching the Cowboys is they always have a certain amount of talent on that team, and they can never do anything with it.
Yeah.
I've been saying for 2 years now that Pollard should be the running back 1. I don't care how much you're paying Zeke at this point. Bench him.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
No, because you're not going to win with Zeke as your number 1 running back, and Sunday proved it. The defense was amazing. Micah Parsons is easily one of the best edge rushers in the NFL already. Yeah. He's a scary dude.
Yeah. It feels like he's in on every play.
Yeah. It doesn't seem to matter who's blocking him unless it's Lane Johnson. And even then, he's literally taking a Hall of Fame, or at least at this point, cups of a Hall of Fame left guard to block him.
Yeah.
Which is crazy considering how young that he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's going to be a freak of nature for a long time in the league. And I'm wondering if he wants to stay in Dallas because if this keeps up, like just the constant heartbreak, like I've known this guy like because I follow Penn State obviously, and like I've known him for a long time, like since he was being recruited and then like coming up, and literally the one thing recruiters would always say about Micah Parsons was his attitude is horrible and like that kind of thing. If this keeps up where Micah Parsons is doing everything he can to keep you in the game and you only score 12 points, I feel like his type of personality isn't staying very long.
Yeah.
I mean, he is on the rookie contract, but like, I mean, that's coming up in 2 or 3 years, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't believe people thought he was going to be a bust.
I know, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I give the Cowboys one more year with the team pretty much intact. I think they're going to try to get another wide receiver because they don't really have a wide receiver one right now. I think they're going to add a little bit more defensively, although they're pretty – honestly, I didn't really see any huge gaps there this season.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to give it one more year, I think.
Yeah.
And if things go real bad next year, then everything's going to be torn down.
Yep.
Because in my opinion, and Slay, I disagree with you on this, I think Jerry Jones really likes Dak Prescott. I think that he loves the fact that Prescott went from being this fourth-round pick that everyone overlooked to, at certain points, being a top 10 quarterback. Now, obviously, this year he really struggled with turnovers, but the offense looked pretty good at certain points, especially against the Bucs, who I thought had the best defensive plan for them, and he tore them apart last week. Mm-hmm. So he has those moments of flashes that makes you hope that he could be the franchise quarterback for the Cowboys. And then he has a game like he had last weekend and just looks awful. So I think that if you get him another wide receiver, you got to give him that shot and see what happens from there.
I think, I have to agree with Aiden. I think Jerry Jones is like very, very forgiving, especially when I saw Meyer the last couple of weeks. He missed like 6 straight extra points, and he's like, no, he still has a job here. Like, I would agree, like, if Dak didn't have as great of a game as he did against the Buccaneers, then he was probably, like, showing him the door. But, like, I don't know. Like, I know he played terrible, but, like, he played like Patrick Mahomes the week before, so he's very forgiving.
And, I mean, Jones did put up with Romo for all those years.
Yeah.
And it seems like Dak is a better quarterback than him.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And here's the issue with everything that you guys both said, that Jerry Jones is the one making the decisions. You can't be a lenient general manager.
Yeah.
You can't be so forgiving if you want to win in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
The Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl since 95, when Jerry Jones fully took over the team after that and said, I'm making all the decisions now.
Yep.
Because he got super jealous of the fact that Jimmy Johnson was the one that made all the decisions, that he's the one that was able to maneuver all those traits to get Emmitt Smith, to get Aikman, to set up that entire team, to bring in Irvin, who was his guy in the U, and win a Super Bowl and create a dynasty. Jones, I think, gets in his own way too much.
Yep.
And if he lets someone else take over this team before now, because now at this point, next year they got to win or everything's done. 5 years ago, if you put someone else in place to make the decisions in the front office, to get a coach that won't just be a yes man, that will make very good decisions, the Cowboys would have won a Super Bowl by now.
Yep. Agreed. And I think Jones has proved that an organization led by him can't win in the NFL. And like the only reason the Cowboys are successful under him, and I'm talking in terms of like profits, is because they are the Cowboys, and he is a great businessman. So like he does well in that standard, and their fan base is still huge, and he has this huge $1 billion stadium and $1 billion facility. What really matters when you're running an organization? Like, I'd much rather have Jeffrey Lurie running my team. Like, Lurie has proven to be like a great owner, and it seemed like in 2020 he was becoming Jones a little bit, like getting too hands-on in the organization, like team-wise. Then he backed off, I feel like, and now we're seeing the team flourish, and when he's letting Howie do his job. And I don't feel like Jones does that. Like, I think Jones has way too much of a say in the team, and that's a problem when it's your owner. Like, you don't want him to have his hands all over the team because you're not a football guy, and like the only reason you're here is because you were rich. Like, that's the truth at the end of the day. You need to let the football guys do their thing. You need to let the football guys be football guys. And like, you can be a fan and you can be a knowledgeable fan, but the truth of the matter is you aren't an NFL GM. Like, you're just not. So you need to let the NFL GM do that. Jones has that issue, and that's really the reason they haven't won in 25 years. Like, that's why you keep, like you said, Aiden, they keep rolling in these teams with talent on the roster. They have great talent, but they come up short every year. They haven't been to an NFC championship game since 1995. There are only 3 teams in the NFC in that time span that haven't been to an NFC championship game. Cowboys, Washington Commanders, Detroit Lions. That's the category you're in. That's the category you're in under Jerry Jones. So maybe we shouldn't be looking at Dak Prescott. Maybe we should be looking at a sale of the Dallas Cowboys.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that Cowboys fans have talked about. And if we're going to be honest, the Cowboys fans would not have forgiven Jerry Jones for firing Tom Landry immediately when he bought the team had they not won those 3 Super Bowls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The move worked out because he brought in a great head coach. And at that point, it's fine moving on from Landry, who had been part of the Cowboys for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But you had to do it the right way. And basically, Jones bought the team and immediately fired him. That's not how you treat one of the best coaches in NFL history.
Yeah.
And immediately, that should have been a huge red flag to Cowboys fans that this guy was going to just go by his first instinct and not listen to anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're talking about Dallas coaches, if there is one thing that I think the Cowboys should do, is fire Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, I mean, he's out, I think.
Yeah. And what was that last play? Like, that is exactly why he has 1 ring and why Aaron Rodgers has 1 ring, too.
Yeah, I mean, like, they didn't have a chance either way, but, like, I mean, just why? It really made no sense. I don't know. It was mind-boggling.
Every playbook in Madden, if you want to run a Hail Mary, it's at least 3 guys on the line. Not Ezekiel Elliott snapping the ball and getting fucking lit up by whoever that was on the defense.
Well, yeah, that's the part that really confused me. If you want to pitch it back to Zeke, why are you putting him at center? Unless your plan is to throw it to Turbin to then throw it back to Zeke, which would have been across the field right after catching it, which still makes no sense because that could easily get picked off. Again, the chances of them converting on that are close to 0 anyway, but that play call is just so bad from all facets of it.
Yeah, and you really needed to give your guy a shot to be able to pitch a ball back to someone, and putting offensive linemen on the outside makes no sense for that scenario. Like, I get the idea you want them to be out there blocking, but how are you even supposed to start the play when there are offensive linemen out there just wasting space? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Ezekiel Elliott, he was ineligible too.
Right. Like, we were just bashing on him, but he's one of the better skill players on the field for you at that moment. It's probably CD, Dalton Schultz, and him.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Pollard's in, I doubt that Zeke's in that position.
Yeah, right, yeah, agreed.
So, I think we talked enough Dallas. I will say from the 49ers perspective, I'm still going to hold true with my prediction of them going to the Super Bowl, but I feel less confident in them beating the Eagles after seeing that game against the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I feel way less confident. Our defense, the Eagles' defense is so much better than Dallas's defense. And I know I don't want to feed into the narrative that Brock Purdy is an easy job. I don't think it's easy being the last pick in the NFL draft and then going to the NFC Championship. I don't care who you're throwing to. I don't care who's protecting you.
Agreed.
How good the defense is. That's a hurdle of its own. Is it one of the easier quarterback jobs in the league? Yes, it may be the easiest. When you look at it, even when he assumed the position as starter, he didn't play the best defenses right away.
Mm-hmm.
It's been slowly building up in the playoffs, and now he's going to have to play a top 4 defense in the NFL, and if they could only get 19 points on the Cowboys, Philly's going to put up 28 or something.
Here's the thing that stood out to me about the Niners offense that would worry me as a Niners fan is the Dallas defensive line was getting pressure on Purdy. It wasn't necessarily getting home enough, obviously, but it was getting there. It was almost getting there at times. And the Eagles' D-line is just a monster. 4 or 5 guys with over 10 sacks. Milton Williams, who is like their third-string D-tackle, had 8.5 sacks this year, facing a monster of a defensive line. And this is going to be a really tough test. And if they are playing the way they played against Dallas, Philly is going to have a field day up in there. And Purdy does not have great pocket awareness. Like, you can see him when the pressure's getting there, he backs up and backs up and like, that's not really what you want to do. And that's a sign of someone who's skittish in the pocket. They have chicken feet in the pocket. And that's not what you want, especially against a front four who gets home like the Eagles do. They don't have to bring extra pressure. They get their front 4 guys home nearly every time. I'm pretty sure they were number 2 in pass rush win rate as a defensive line this year. And it was by a wide margin. If the Philly front 4 can get home the way they have been all year long, Philadelphia is going to win this game. There's not much the weapons are going to be able to do when Purdy's going to have to be making extremely quick decisions and he's very skittish in the pocket. That's not a good mixture. And like I said, if the pressure gets home, Philadelphia's going to win this game because I don't think the Niners defense can do enough to really slow down this offense for Philadelphia. I don't think their run defense is as good to stop a run attack like the Eagles have. And on the outside, I don't really think that they have enough playmakers in the secondary to really disrupt the 3-headed monster the Eagles have. And the key for them is they have to get pressure on Hurts too. The negative with that is if you are bringing extra pressure to get home, Hurts is very good at escaping pressure and finding lanes to maneuver and run out of. And that's when you run into a lot of problems with Philadelphia. So I think this game is really leaning towards the Eagles this Sunday.
I'm interested to see how well the 49ers can run the football. Because the Eagles' run defense is looking much better at this point than it did towards the middle and partway at the end of the season.
Yep.
And the 49ers really struggled to run the football against the Cowboys. And Slay, like you said, the Eagles' defensive line is much better than the Cowboys. I 100% agree with that. So if you struggled to run the football in this game, if Purdy, who's now looked a little less confident than he did in the regular season, again, he still hasn't really made any huge mistakes yet, but I don't really know exactly what it is. Slay, like you said, with his feet moving, that's definitely part of it. The lack of pocket awareness. I think it's also just the fact that this is a rookie quarterback who was drafted in the 7th round.
Yep.
And probably never expected to get where he is right now. And total credit to him for playing clean football, not great all the time, but doing enough to get your team in positions to win, which when you're on a team like the 49ers, that's all you have to do. And the fact that he also has the ability to scramble a little bit, which adds an element to the 49ers that you didn't have when you had Garoppolo. Obviously, he's not going to run the ball all the time. And if he runs out of the pocket, he might put himself in danger. But he also has an ability to escape blitzes and find someone like George Kittle cutting across the field. That's what worries me the most about this game if I'm an Eagles fan, is that I don't know who's going to be covering Kittle. Because you could put Gardner Johnson in the slot and cover him. I don't trust Edwards to be able to stop Kittle at all. He's just a freak of nature, one of the best tight ends in football. And the middle of the Eagles defense has always been a weakness this season. They've been able to cover it up decently well, especially when you get the pass rush on. But I don't know if they're going to be able to stop Kittle if he's able to find space to run.
Yeah, your pass rush is really going to have to work hand in hand for you to stop Kittle because you're right. Like the Eagles don't really have a guy that can match up with Kittle really well. They don't really have a linebacker who's quick enough. Like Edwards is big enough, but not quick enough. And then Kaiser is quick enough, but he's not big enough to stay with Kittle. And Garner Johnson might be a good idea, but you're really going to have to look to shadow Kittle all day, and even Debo too, which Ayuk is going to be scary.
Yeah, because that's the whole thing. If you put Johnson, who's usually plays in the slot, on Kittle the entire game, now you're leaving a whole chunk of the field exposed for Debo or Ayuk.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough matchup. I mean, obviously, if the Eagles can get a lot of pressure like they did on Saturday, I think they'll be okay. But if the 49ers line holds up, it's going to be a very tough, close physical game.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. Like the team that wins the line of scrimmage battle is going to win this game, I think.
Yeah.
It's going to be a really, really, really tough physical game too. Like both of these teams are like that. Like they love hitting, they love mixing it up. So it's going to be a really fun game to watch.
Yep, 100%.
And going to the Eagles-Giants game, there's really not much to talk about here.
Yeah.
I was like 1 week late on my Daniel Jones choke prediction, but it happened.
Yeah.
The score looks very similar to a time the Eagles did go on a run from the divisional game. Yeah, I mean, they look really good. I had some concerns about them just from how they finished the regular season and if their bye week was going to serve them well, but it served them very well. They destroyed the divisional rival. I think they're going to play well up against this 49ers team just based on what I saw like the last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts. I don't know about Sirianni comparing him to Jordan. I see what he was saying.
Yeah. I see it's like he's not Jordan, but for the Eagles offense, he's Jordan.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
And I can't find like a weak spot in his game right now. Like
I know.
He's like the best possible quarterback. I mean,
yeah.
I think if he shifted just a little bit more of his rushing tendency to passing tendency, he'd be the perfect quarterback. But he's as close to perfect as we've seen in a while.
Yeah, I was also going to say, when you get up 28-0, there's no reason to start throwing the football. As we saw in the Chargers game, there's no reason for him to throw over 25 passes when you're up that much that early. So they did it. This was a very well-coached game by Sirianni, too, which I mentioned before when they struggled. I was concerned about how he coached in a big game like this, especially considering the first time we saw him was last year against the Bucs. He did not look like a competent playoff coach at all.
Right.
This was a very everything. Like Moby, you said, there is no flaws in this game at all for the Eagles. They ran the ball really well. Hurts did well passing when he had to pass. The route running by all the receivers was great. A.J. Brown getting frustrated, I understand it. He's going to have to put himself in check if he wants to win.
Yeah, I don't honestly, I'm not really concerned about that.
I'm not too concerned either.
Yeah.
And like I said, I understand his frustration, but you also have to keep in mind what happened in other playoff games.
Right.
And what happened in other games when you didn't go conservative like this.
Yeah.
And even then, they didn't even go that conservative because they were still just finding holes the whole time. Which, I mean, the best part about this Eagles team, it's something that we've talked about before, and I've seen a lot of other people talk about before, and this group of guys never really gets talked about for most teams. The offensive line is amazing.
Yep. 100%.
What they are able to do on the football field to get off their block, to get the 5 yards ahead of every running back pretty much every time, to blow back defensive linemen the way to do. I mean, I've just never really seen it from any other team. And the group of guys I've seen this team get compared to on social media is the 90s Cowboys offensive line.
Yeah, I just heard that one today too.
Yeah, I don't know how I totally feel about that. I still think that offensive line is the best ever.
Yeah, no question.
I'm close to closing it. But this offensive line is still very, very good. And the fact they're even getting compared like that shows how much people are paying attention to them.
Yeah, Mailata's not even having that great of a year.
I know. Honestly, like Mailata's been overrated a teensy bit. Like he's still good, but just a little bit overrated. But like you were saying, Aiden, they've been the best group for a while now, like 4 years consistently. I mean, 2020 was the only hiccup, but they dealt with all those injuries on the O-line. Like you're not going to play well, but it's all coaching really. Like Stoutland is just an incredible offensive mind. And like, I'm not trying to take away from the talent because they're all obviously talented, but all that talent mixed with a magical mind of Jeff Stoutland is just an incredible combination. Like this has really been, have we seen a dominance from a positional unit like this ever really? Like it's just every one of them plays insanely well. 3 of them were Pro Bowl starters, 2 alternates. It's insane how amazing they've played as a unit. Like I can't really think. Like honestly, the one you can compare to is the Bengals wide receivers.
Yeah,
it's like that dominant.
I was gonna say the 2 teams I'm very high on after this week because of how big their margin of victory was and how well they played is the Bengals and Eagles.
Yep.
Both of them had pretty much flawless games. The Bengals struggled a little bit early on. I mean, they got up to a 17-7 lead, and then after that, totally took care of business. Obviously, the Eagles' score was bigger, but they were playing a worse opponent.
Yeah.
So when you look at it that way, I mean, both of them, I can't say anything bad.
Yeah, right. And like
how they play.
Honestly, like then you look on the other sides of both of the matchups, like the Chiefs, Mahomes' ankle is looking like a huge concern right now. And then the 49ers didn't really play up to their standard against Dallas. Like those fans have to be worried, I feel like, coming into the Sunday.
Yeah, I definitely want to touch on the Mahomes injury because that worries me as well.
Yeah.
If he's not 100% healthy, I don't see how the Chiefs can win this game. Even 90% healthy would be something.
Yeah.
But he just relies too much on his ability to move in the pocket.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've ever seen him be a stationary quarterback before. And that's what it feels like he's going to have to be in this game. And the biggest issue is this is where not having Tyreek Hill might hurt the most.
Mm-hmm.
Because Mahomes' ability to run around the pocket gives other players the ability to get open space, where now if he's stationary, he's not going to have that deep ball, fast guy to rely on.
Yep.
So you're going to rely on Kelsey to hopefully be able to get open. But I feel like the Bengals' defensive line or defensive front and linebackers are good enough to stop Kelsey at least a little bit, contain him.
Yeah.
And I don't really trust any of the wide receivers considering what I just saw the Bengals do to the Bills wide receivers.
Right. I completely agree. And like the Chiefs offensive line is good, but for the Bengals front, like it's a front that good and a quarterback that's stationary is a lot easier to get to no matter how good your offensive line is. Like it's going to be an issue for them. And if they couldn't beat the Bengals last year with the healthy Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, I'm just wondering what this game is going to look like. I truly feel like the Bengals are going to run them out.
Yeah.
Like, this might be a 20-point win. It's
starting to feel like that.
Yeah, and it's like, we saw what happened when the Chiefs had to deal with all those injuries in the Super Bowl against Tom Brady and the Bucs. Like, they just looked like a completely different offense. And this is huge. Mahomes is your offense. He's the system. Kelsey's great, but the ball has to be thrown to him, you know? Mm-hmm. And I'm not even trying to diss any of the receivers, but the receiving core has taken a dip.
Yeah.
This is going to be tough for them. They're going to have to pull off a miracle, it feels like. That's just my feeling.
Yeah, I saw Andy Reid is like preparing for Mahomes to play and start. Like, he's been working his ass off to get back.
I wouldn't, I don't want to say that Henne is the better option, but I could see the argument being made that Henne's the better option this week.
Well, I feel like if you throw Henne in, you're just forfeiting.
I don't think, because, dude, you need a quarterback who can step up in the pocket a little bit and, who can maneuver a little bit. Like, Mahomes, if he's stationary, can you even play him? I mean, if he can move a little bit, they're obviously going to... I mean, no. He's going to play this week. Mahomes isn't allowing this to happen, but...
Yeah, no, I don't see a way that he doesn't play.
Yeah, but...
And even if Henne goes in, he had a great drive, but I don't know if you can fully feel confident putting Chad Henne in even over a 75% healthy Mahomes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be a really tough test. This is going to be really hard.
I mean, the thing is with Andy Reid, I feel like if Mahomes struggles a lot, if it looks like he's in a lot of pain, I don't think that Reid will even think about just letting Mahomes play it out. I feel like he'd be totally fine putting in Henne if he has to.
Yeah, no,
it's not something he would want to do, but the fact that he already did it, even with Mahomes getting injured right away, and him saying, no, we'll just put in our backup and we'll be fine, that's got to make Chiefs fans feel at least a little bit better. Still not great considering, again, how well the Bengals played against pretty healthy Bills team. Again, this one's going to be tough for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
They still could do it. I don't doubt Mahomes at all anymore, but it is going to be a very tough game.
Yeah.
For sure.
And on the other side of that game, Jacksonville played really well. His name? Lawrence was able to really limit the turnovers from last week. They were right there. I mean, granted, Henne coming in really helped them get there, but I really see a skyrocketing trend for this team. I could see them going to the Super Bowl within 3 years.
Yeah, I can see that. I think that they have some names on defense that are going to start becoming bigger ones. And offensively, when you have a quarterback like that, and you're sort of seeing some of these weapons flourish right now, like Christian Kirk had a great year. I feel like Marvin Jones is coming into his own again. Zay Jones has found a home, it feels like. It seemed like he always flashed talent when he was in Buffalo and Vegas, but he just like couldn't put it all together. But it seems like it's coming together now in Jacksonville. And then the other guys, Evan Ingram, I mean, he's had a really good year.
Yeah,
Ingram finally got over the problem of him not being able to catch passes. Just the amount of jobs he had with the Giants was very frustrating for them. It seems like he finally figured that out, at least for this season. There's obviously been wide receivers and tight ends that have figured out the drop problem for a year or part of a year and then have gone back to it. So we'll see what happens next year. But you've got to feel so much more confident about him now than you would have previously.
Right, agreed. And I was impressed with like his turnaround because it looked dead in the water. And like when you have someone a pass catcher who just like can't catch passes, it's tough to break out of that. You know, we saw with Rager. And now it feels like Rager's not going to have a job next year. I mean, Minnesota hates him.
I don't. The only reason you bring him back is for special teams. And even then, he has never looked.
He's horrible. He's horrible at punt returning.
No, he is. He's not a good punt return. That's the whole thing. If that's what you brought him in was to be this fast guy, special teams, amazing, like the next Devin. I don't know what the Eagles were thinking about it.
Yeah,
and it's still yes. The Eagles now have a great pairing in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith.
Yep.
But someone tried telling me you wouldn't rather have Justin Jefferson over Smith.
Oh, no question. No question.
Yeah.
And they still would have gotten A.J. Brown, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Devontae Smith is my favorite player, too. So
yeah.
I love him, but I'd rather have Jefferson.
I'm not trying to hate on Smith at all.
Yeah, right.
I'm just saying between those two,
exactly.
I don't think it's that close.
No, it's not. It's not close.
And the fact that I was just going to say, and the fact you could have gotten someone else the next year in the first round instead of having to go back to the wide receiver position. But you know what? Look, the Eagles are where they're at. Yeah. It's fine.
It worked out.
You still got to be a little bit irritated.
Yeah, you lucked out, but I completely agree.
Yeah.
He was in your lap.
Yep.
But, I mean, at the same time, also, I always want to point this out, too. Like, Ruggs was drafted over him, Judy was drafted over him, and C.D. Lamb were also drafted over Jefferson. Like, those were horrible mistakes, too.
Right. Well,
I don't know if C.D. Lamb was a horrible mistake.
No.
Really? I would be angry.
Good. He's good.
He's okay.
No, like, here's the thing about C.D.
He's not a one.
He doesn't have the size to be a one, but I don't think he was ever supposed to be. I think the Cowboys were looking for someone that had speed, not necessarily size. He fits the Cowboys' offense very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
like more than Jefferson would for them. And the thing is, it's fine that all these guys. Also, I want to point out, T. Higgins fell into the second round of that draft.
Yeah, right. And
which
he's making a case to be better than C.D. Lamb, in my opinion.
I mean, look, you're obviously going to have to take Tony Romo's opinion for it, and there's a couple of times where Tony Romo just irritates me as an announcer.
Yeah.
But he was saying that when it comes to the Bengals, you can make the argument that Higgins is a wide receiver one.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily disagree with
that.
No,
I completely agree with that.
Either.
Yeah. So, look, the draft is obviously a crapshoot for sure. But it was pretty clear that out of all the wide receivers that we named, between Judy, Ruggs, Jefferson, and Higgins, that Rager was the worst one to pick.
100%. Rager didn't belong in the fourth round of that draft.
First round. Yeah, that's the whole thing. He would have fallen into the third or fourth.
Yeah. I would have said deeper than that, to be honest. Like, I remember him getting a third-round grade. I think he would have fallen like fifth or sixth round.
And the Eagles totally overdrafted on him.
Yeah, completely. That was terrible.
And here's the thing. Yes, everything that happened with Henry Ruggs went downhill fast. At that point, I don't think it's a question that you still would have gone with Ruggs. And even now, looking at how their careers have both gone, picking Ruggs, you still would have gotten at least a year of him being a good wide receiver.
Yeah.
I'm actually, this is a weird stance, but I think if Ruggs was drafted anywhere else, he would still be in the league. In no other city that has an NFL team would you be out on a Monday morning doing Top Golf and drinking. Like, he was a victim of his Well, no, it was all his fault, but like,
Yeah, I hear you.
No, I understand. And this was a huge concern about the Raiders moving to Vegas too.
That's why the NBA is like hesitant on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't move any team there. It's just a terrible idea.
Yeah, especially seeing what happened with Ruggs, it's hard to argue that having a team there isn't necessarily the best idea.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, obviously the players need to take accountability for their actions, but it's harder to be a young millionaire who now has this availability to party and gamble and do whatever they want all night long. Obviously, you can do that in other cities as well, but public transportation is better in cities like New York and LA than it is in Vegas, where you would have the ability to then go out and do what Ruggs did, which again, should never have happened. He should have taken an Uber, done something else besides that.
100%.
But it is something that teams have to think about.
And I fail to think, I think that Ruggs was intoxicated driving to the Topgolf too. I think he should have taken an Uber there and home. But
yeah, it's very hard not to say if the Raiders were still in Oakland, this probably would have never happened.
Yeah, maybe. It's definitely possible. But I mean, Oakland is like they were just being driven out of Oakland also by the city of Oakland. Like that's what's happening with the Athletics too. They're not funding the stadium or anything. Like they're driving them out.
Yes and no. I don't think that owners should take cities hostage when it comes to this, especially a city like Oakland that doesn't really have the money to build a state-of-the-art stadium.
Yeah.
When the owners definitely do. Like, if you want to move out, fine. Just move out already. Don't be telling people to turn on the city that you live in, which is why Oakland fans weren't showing up to athletics games anyways, because they don't like the ownership.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And also, if you're going to be the ownership of a team, don't for 20 years be paying the minimum amount you possibly can to put a team together and then say that's the city's fault.
Yeah, right. That's true, too.
Because
yeah.
This is what the Athletics have been doing for 20 years since Moneyball. And this is the issue that I have with everyone saying, oh, Moneyball works well. Really? Because that would just give Oakland the ability to say, hey, we're going to keep doing this because it worked a couple of times to get us to the ALDS and nothing past that.
Right. Yeah. What have the Oakland Athletics done under Moneyball?
Nothing.
Yeah.
That's why everyone that talks about Moneyball is not really a sports fan because they have no knowledge of the sports. And look, it's fine if you're really into still stuff. It is amazing what the Athletics are able to do with no money and still make the playoffs every year based on how they did on the draft. And the players they drafted were also very, very good players. But at a certain point, you have to say, this isn't working, and we need to actually spend money in order to win.
Yeah, right. To sustain winning. And, they never do that. And
no. There's a reason why them and the Reds are always going to finish the last, and the Pirates.
Yeah, and the movie Moneyball made it seem like the Athletics were better than they were, too. Like, the Athletics weren't a threat to win the World Series or anything, but Moneyball kind of made it seem like they were. And
No, the year that I think it was 2003.
Yeah, it was either 02 or 03, I forget.
Yeah, it was 03, and the two teams that made it past them were the Red Sox and Yankees. I guarantee that the Red Sox and Yankees had a top 10 salary that year.
Yeah.
And there was no way Oakland was able to compete with them.
Yeah, and the annoying thing is these teams can spend the money. Like, they have billionaire owners that can afford to go over the luxury tax. It's literally they choose not to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's hilarious. They wasted a 4th overall pick on Kyler Murray, and he never entered the farm system.
Yeah.
That's just idiotic. You know he was going to pick the NFL.
Yeah, right.
He won the Heisman, for God's sake.
And he was going to be the number 1 pick.
Yeah, he's not going up.
Yeah, the thing is, when it comes to that, though, it's just a way to get publicity. Yeah, the guy might not play for them, but at least we'll get you to talk about them. But it also, when it comes to Oakland as a sports town, there's a reason also why Golden State left.
Yep.
All these teams are leaving Oakland, and they had the money to pay for new stadiums. They just don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate that a lot of great sports cities, like Oakland was, no longer have franchises.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the Rui Hachimura trade really quickly.
Yeah.
I think the Lakers fleeced the Wizards, and that kind of seems to be the consensus for everyone except ESPN.
Yeah.
They actually made a post rating both sides of this trade. They gave the Lakers a C for their perspective of what they got in the trade, and they gave the Wizards a B+ from their perspective on the trade. And I thought that it was just nonsensical because, you're literally bringing in like a 13-point per game scorer, and in return you're giving second. I mean, I get they have no picks now. Basically, they gave like their final 2 picks away, but like,
yeah,
I don't even think Kendrick Nunn was playing for the Lakers at that time.
Like, he was getting some minutes, but not many minutes. And like, I do agree with ESPN about the B+ for the Wizards. I feel like you got some picks, and then I think Nunn is an okay player. And what are the Wizards really trying to win right now? Like, they're just trying to find their way through this mess because we don't really know what's going on with Beal, and they're not really in a position right now to add another superstar, like a young guy through the draft, and they don't really have assets to trade for a big piece. So I feel like they're just collecting as many draft picks as they can. Like, Rui is a good player, like you said, but he's not a player where he's going to induce a superstar through a trade. So I think they got the most out of what they could for him. Maybe could have gotten a little more, but I think it's okay what they got. But I agree with you. Like, for the Lakers, I think that they added a really good player. And yeah, the draft pick thing, but again, like, they don't really have any draft picks as it was. Like, we've talked about this before. They don't have a future involving the draft. Like, they're going to have to go into free agency and pay players. You know, they're going to have to dump LeBron and AD at some point and then immediately go in, which they will, and they'll get someone because they're Los Angeles Lakers.
The thing that I thought was weird with the Washington Wizards was, like, yeah, like, getting rid of Hachimura basically says that you want to try the rebuilding thing again, but, like, why would you say that Kyle Kuzma's off the market? Like, wouldn't you just...
Yeah,
like,
no, that's
try
true.
and get rid of both of them?
I mean, I would like to see what they pay him first before I make an opinion on that, really, because I do think Kuzma can be a good piece if you add more around him. Like, if you had Beal, another number 2, I think Kuzma could be your 3. Are they going to pay Tobias Harris money to Kyle Kuzma? I pray to God not. And I hope they don't pay, like, over... I hope they don't pay over... See, the market is so inflated now. I hope they don't pay over $16 million a year for him. I'll put it at that. He's
definitely getting more than that, though. Like, definitely.
You think he can get $20 million a year? Kuzma?
I think 18 is realistic.
Okay. 18, I would do 18. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I would do 18.
But the thing is, like, you can't trade Bradley Beal, really. I mean, you can, but...
He doesn't even want to.
Yeah, he wants to stay there. Yeah. That's the issue. So, like, I don't know how authentic, like, a rebuild would even be there.
Yeah, at this point, yeah. I get what you're saying.
I
still think Beal is a great player, though.
Yeah, he'll always take them to, like, the play-in tournament at least.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not kind of, like, helpful to a rebuild.
But I feel like if you add another superstar, like, it elevates the play of your role players. Like, I like Denny Avdia. I think that he has a decent future in the league. Like, I think he could be a role player. And, well, I like Hachimura, but Bertans is a good role player, I feel like. And I've always liked Gafford because Embiid does own him, but, like, Gafford is one of those dudes who, like, always goes balls to the wall when he plays Embiid, which I love seeing that. And, like, whenever I watch Gafford in games where he's not playing Embiid, he does really well. So I think Gafford is a good guy to keep around on their team too. Mm-hmm. So I think that if you add someone else, everyone else gets elevated just a little bit. I think that they should be looking to add something. Like, I don't think that the market for them is as bad as it may seem. Like, I think people are always like, oh, no superstar will ever want to go to Washington. But listen, Beal is a popular player in the league. A lot of guys like Beal. He's a perennial all-star, so he has contact with a lot of superstars and stuff. Dudes like him, and, like, if Chicago has another implosion, like, I could see either DeMar or Levine going there, and wanting to go there, like, something like that. I don't know. I think that they should really heavily push themselves out.
My biggest thing about the Wizards is I've been very confused what direction they wanted to go into since they got rid of John Wall.
Yeah.
Because it felt like they were headed for a rebuild and then signed Russ for that 1 year where he basically single-handedly led them into the playoffs as an 8 seed and then lost, and they didn't want him back after the second year, I think. And then they still kept Beal and then drafted Hachimura, but they don't want him, but they're fine keeping Kuzma. Like, you've got to pick a direction because at this point, with the roster they have, they're always going to finish in between the 8th to 10th seed.
Right, yeah, that's the truth at this point.
That's not. I don't remember the last time, if it's ever happened, that a team that's been below the 6 seed has made it to an NBA Finals.
No, I don't think that's
And
happened.
never won,
now it
but-
won't happen.
Oh, the 8th seed Knicks did it once.
They went or won?
Well, they went, but they lost to the Spurs.
Okay, and that was
99.
So that was trying to think.
That was a lockout year, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So, and the other thing too, the NBA market has totally changed.
Yeah.
Where now you need a top player in order to win, and they don't really have that. The Wizards don't, and they also haven't. I don't know the last time they paid a player that much since John Wall.
Yeah, I know, and look how that went.
Top superstar. Yeah, I don't. They sort of need to figure that out. They either need to go in the direction of tanking or being somewhat competitive, but not really, or go all in with the roster they have right now. And
Agreed.
It doesn't feel like that their ownership wants to do either of those right now.
Yeah.
So I don't really. And they're just always going to sort of be there, and that's not really a direction that any fan wants, especially in the NBA.
Yeah, I think we said this on the pod too before. It's like the worst place to be is in the middle because you're not good enough to compete and you're not bad enough to get the number one pick.
Yeah.
So they're always going to be in like that hell pretty much of the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, right there with the Chicago Bulls as well.
Yeah, that's pretty much where the Bulls are. Yeah, I agreed.
Yeah.
Do you guys have anything else?
No, I don't think so. No, I'm good.
I don't either right now. So.
Okay. We'll call it here. So we'll see you next Saturday and 10 Saturdays from now, too. All right. Peace.